So let me start our class. Today we'll discuss digital signature. The textbook has very small portion refer to digital signature. You can see probably here. That's all it talks about. Just one paragraph, not even much. I don't know how much you can really go through and what you can write, but there's a topic being given as part of syllabus. So I'll try to cover a lot more, to give you the idea what it means, and then you can read and understand and correlate through digital signature. So most of material is from textbook 1. So let's start. Why do we need signature at all? We basically need signature so that we can be sure that the message or the information has come from right person. When we see a notice on a notice board, signed by HOD or signed by principal, we know because it is signed, it is official, and you can trust that message come principal, so authenticity of the sender. And because it is signed, you can trust the message. And you verify. So by signature, you verify the sender, and because it's coming from right authorities, you probably trust and authenticate the message. However, the difference between e-signature and the physical signature ends because we need to sign to so that recipient could verify. We expect that signature of each individual is unique, and same is the case for even our digital world. However, that similarity ends there. If you look at the major difference between digital information or digital data versus data which is available on paper or in a book or any other form, when we make a copy of the original data on digital data, whenever we make a copy, there is no difference between the copy and the original. You create a MS Word file, somebody makes a copy, 2 copies, or PDF file, both are the same, both are identical. You cannot say one is the copy of the other. And copying can be done easily in a mass, much easier. Whereas if it's a paper document, you can take a photocopy, but one can distinguish that this is a photocopy and not the original. So in paper world, a person when signs, its signature remains the same on all the paper the person signs. So we look at the principal, when principal signs, notice 1 today, notice 2 tomorrow, some third notice other day, it's the same signature, and by this signature we identify. However, in digital world, because it can be copied easily, signature for each document for each person has to be unique. And because of the difference, the digital signature requires a different level of understanding, skill, and how does it work. So we define a signature or digital signature as primarily some cryptographic technique on the given data which acts as very similar to paper-based signature or hand signature. So my cryptographic technique gives me the equivalent effect of a paper signature, then we can call digital signature. So we look at simplistic word and then see what are the challenges and finally how the digital signature actually looks like. Let's say so looking at the example and Bob and Ellis from textbook 1, when Bob digitally signs a document, Bob is basically saying he's the one who created the document or he's the one who verifies that it's the document. He stands for or vouches for the given document. Recipient could be Alice or anybody else. When recipient receives the document, it should be able to verify that document indeed came from Bob or the document indeed came from the sender, and not even that. This should also be even non-repudiable, that sender shouldn't deny and never send it. Or somebody else should not force the document that Ram sent the document, but it says the document is from HOD. That shouldn't happen. So let us look at how the digital signature works. What does it really mean? We start with simple case and then we go to little complicated case for our digital signature. Consider a document time and we are looking at first case. The first purpose is authenticating the messages. Digital signature does not imply confidentiality of the message. So please do understand the difference. Digital signature is only for authenticating and verifying the sender. It is not for confidentiality of the message, and that will require a different technology which we'll discuss probably at the end of the lecture as well. So consider that Bob needs to send a message M, and we've seen public and private key. Private keys always remain with the user. Public key can be visible to anybody, so Bob can maintain a website and say this is my public key, and then anybody can access it. But private key remains with the user. So when Bob has to send a message M, Bob takes his private key and encrypt the message with his private key, which you call KB2 or whatever. So notice we have been using B2 is private key of Bob and B1 is public key of Bob. Our book uses B minus is a private key and B plus is a public key. So we can look at those notations. So when Bob has a message, say, dear Alice, blah, 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 long time, whatever, something has to send. Now this whole message is fed to an encryption engine, which basically the whole public private key infrastructure mechanism, and input to this encryption mechanism is private key of Bob. So you encrypt the message with private key of Bob, and what you get is encrypted message. Now this encrypted message along with the original message is sent to the recipient. Now when the recipient gets the message M and recipient gets the encrypted message M, which has been signed by private key of the sender. So let's say our recipient is Alice, and when Alice received the message M, along with the encrypted message which is signed by private key of Bob, Alice has a public key of Bob. Alice applies the public key on an encrypted message which is signed by private key and get the message M back. Now, if this message M is equal to what is the message sent by Bob, that means Alice can be sure that this message came from Bob because nobody could have the private key of Bob. So the entire encryption works as the signature of the Bob, and that one could verify. And we'll see this simple approach works, but what could be challenges with this approach? So Alice gets the message and verifies that it is the Bob who signed the message because she is able to decrypt using public key of Bob and compare, and that works. And Alice can be sure that the message was signed by Bob was M and not M prime, because if it is M prime, the comparison would have failed. Alice can also be sure about non-repudiation, saying it is indeed the Bob who sent the message, and Bob tomorrow cannot deny, no, I never sent it. Alice can take this encrypted message and the original message to the court and say, look, this message is signed by private key of Bob and I can decrypt this public key. And because nobody can have a private key of Bob, so this message indeed was sent by Bob and Bob cannot repudiate, no, I never sent it. And Alice would win the case hands down if Bob happened to deny. So this also provides what is called non-repudiation part. However, encrypting the entire message with private key and then using a public key to decrypt, this requires heavy computation as we have seen. Encryption requires take the message and take the power XA of the message and recipient further does inferential power and get the message back. So using public and private key to encrypt the message is high compute intensive job. Requires good amount of computer time. It may not be easy and we wouldn't like to encrypt the entire message because we take too much time. So what normally is done is we take the hash value of a message and encrypt only that. Because encrypting a small part only has my document could be, let's say, 10 pager signature, or my document could be 10 megabytes. My signature could be only, let's say, 64 bytes, 128 bytes. So encrypting only small size with public and private keys workable is not that compute intensive, but doing for entire message, it will be very compute intensive. That means we need to have a good hash function which will give us a hash, and that hash value could be encrypted using private key and that could be sent. So you take a large message and generate the hash function and send the hash value with the encryption or whatever that. For a hash value to work properly, hash function needs to follow certain properties that we discussed in our yesterday class. First is, it should always give fixed size message and many to one. Because my hash value is a small size message, let's say my original message is 1000 bytes and my hash value is 16 bytes. So that means we are reducing 1000 bytes to 16 bytes. So there could be number of messages which would map to the same 16 bytes. So, and that means it is many to one, yes. And hash value always gives me fixed size value. 16 bytes, 32 bytes, 64 bytes, so on and so forth. Further, given a hash value, given some hash value x, one should not be able to determine the message such that hash of that message becomes equal to x. If from the hash value we can construct a message that gives us the same hash value, that means this hash function is very poor, it will not work and subject to be hashable. So security of signature and everything depends upon a good hash function. We also discussed one more requirement for a hash value when we were discussing yesterday, that given a message M1, hash function should be such that given a message M1, one should not be able to find a message M2 such that H of M1 is same as H of M2, because if that can happen, then message could be changed. So to make sure that whatever hash function we use, it has to comply with requirements of the hash function. We have all seen internet checksum that is used in IP packets, that is used in TCP packets, and we even use in UDP protocol. Is internet checksum a good hash function? Any thoughts? Is technique of using internet checksum, is it a good hash function? Anyone? Ranjita? Gautam?
I don't know, sir.
What is the requirement? We said, given the message M1, we should not be able to find a message M2 which will give me same hash function. Now internet checksum, look at UDP. Given a UDP message, can you find another message as a user which will give me same checksum? Dhruv?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so in internet checksum is a good hash function. Does it meet all the requirements? It is many to one. It gives a free text value for a given message, for a given hash value x. We shouldn't be able to find a message m such that h of m is x. For any message m1, we shouldn't be able to find a message m2 which has the same hash value. Recall our discussion on UDP protocol. Any message that we are sending, if you modify the message and prefix with capital letters UQ, 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 we still get the same internet checksum, which correspond to original data. So that means given data M1, we can always prepend it with 6 characters UQ, 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 and will give us same hash value. So because of that, we can do that. Internet checksum is not a good hash function. And hence, in security terms, internet checksum is not really used. And that's the reason we looked at SHA algorithm, securest algorithm, to make sure that given a message M, we can't find another message with the same hash value. As an example, why internet checksum is not a good hash function, let's look at the following case. Consider we have a message and we write in the hex value. And for the hex value, compute the internet checksum, that is add all the values and add the carry, and we get the checksum. So for this data, we got the checksum. Now consider that some attacker or somebody else modified the message and interchanged 9 with 1. So previous message was IOU 100.99BOB. And now the message has been modified to IOU 900.19BOB. They have this hex value. Will the internet checksum of this be same as internet checksum previous message? Question I'm asking is, will internet checksum of these values on the right hand side will be same as internet checksum on the left hand side? Anyone? Dhanlakshmi? Ashwini? Simple question, I've given you the data.
Yes, sir.
Will it be same or different?
It will be
Checksum,
same, sir.
it will be same because what is internet checksum? We are adding. Now whether we add 31 first and 39 later or add 39 first and 31 later, we'll get the same answer. So this checksum is going to be the same. And because it is same checksum, that means internet checksum is a very poor hash function from cryptography perspective. In cryptography, the checksum is normally not used. And we said, we looked at the example of, yesterday we looked at algorithm SHA-1, which is a good crypto function. And in fact, today, people are able to break it. So we have gone for SHA-512 and SHA-256, which gives us hash value of 256 bits or 512 bits. So assuming we have a hash function now, how does our digital signature work? So what Bob does, Bob takes a message, compute the hash value, for example, using SHA-1, and encrypt this value using private key of Bob. So Bob takes the private key of this message, Bob takes the private key, encrypts with private key the hash value and get the encrypted hash value. While sending it, all that Bob has to do is take the original message, append this encrypted hash value, and send it out. Sign of a post office, letterbox, whatever you like to say. When Alice receives this message along with encrypted hash value, Alice takes the encrypted hash value, applies the public key of Bob. When you apply the public key of Bob, he would get the actual hash value. Alice also got the message. She applied the hash function on the message and get the hash value and compare the two hash values. If the two hash values are same, that means message is signed by Bob, correct? If the two hash values are not same, that means message is not from Bob or message has been tampered. And Alice could determine the authenticity. So this is the key principle behind digital signature. So digital signature is nothing but taking a hash value of a document and signing with private key of the sender. And that is a digital signature. How does receiver verifies it? Receiver has the public key of the sender, because public key means public, means known to everybody. So receiver gets the public key, applies the public key to the encrypted value, get the hash value. Receiver also computes its own hash value from the message, compares the two, and if comparison is equal, that means message is from the sender, otherwise message not from sender or has been corrupted. This looks good, but this has its own challenges. Let us look at what challenges could be. Consider Trudy is an attacker, and Trudy wants to play a prank on Bob. So Trudy constructs a message, sends an email to a pizza store saying, please deliver 4 pepperoni pizzas to Bob. And Trudy signs the order with her private key. And Trudy also sends her public key to the pizza store, but says that this is the Boss public key. So Trudy says, I am Bob. Trudy has signed with her private key, sends her public key, but says this is Bob's public key. Now, because it's the public key private key match, pizza store would basically say, yeah, public is matching with the order encryption, and that means send the pizza to Bob, and pizza Bob doesn't even order, doesn't like it. So what is the flaw here? How does pizza owner can verify that this public key is indeed from the Bob and not from somebody else? Any thought? Process is correct. Trudy created a hash value, Trudy signed it, sent it, but said, I am Bob. How does pizza owner verify that the public key he has got is from Bob only and not from Trudy? Any thoughts? Gautam? Or Ashwini? Anyone like to give answer? Sanjay Haber. I mean, how does pizza owner trust that the really public key? Okay, let me give an example. You all have two-wheeler or a car or whatever, and you have a driving license. Let's say instead of taking a driving license from transport department or motor vehicle department, you request the principal, please give me a driving license. And principal of KSI to give you driving license. It has your own photograph, it has your name, address, and principal signature, principal phone number, everything. Is this driving license valid? When you go on a road with the driving license issued by the principal, police person oblige it and say, yes, okay, acceptable.
No, sir.
Why not? What is the reason? Why would police person will not accept this driving license? Give a thought. Why?
Be-
What is the,
Because it's not
yeah,
issued by the transport
yeah.
department.
Because see, driving license has every correct information. It has your photograph, your name, your phone number, your signature, signed by principal, principal signature are valid. There is no forgery. Everything is correct. But police person trust only if it is from transport department and not from somebody else. So in digital signature, same thing is done, which is what we call as digital certificate. Like police person accept driving license only from issued by the transport department. Same way, there are certain certifying authority equivalent to transport department, which issue certificate. So if sender can get a certificate or his public key, because sender has a private key and a public key. So sender can get his or her public key certified by a certifying authority, which could be VeriSign, which could be Google, which could be GoDaddy, whatever, which everybody trusts. There are a number of such certificate authority. Of course, they'll charge you money to issue this certificate. You pay the money to get driving license. It's not you have to pay the fees to meet the expenses. So if sender can get the key, her or his private key certified by a certifying authority, then recipient could trust. Because this certifying authority, which are few, such as VeriSign, Thate, Google, GoDaddy, and if the public key is signed by this certifying authority, then public key could be trusted. In previous case, when Trudy sent her public key but claimed as Bob, it wasn't signed by anything. So how does this digital certificate work? Basically what certifying authority does, it takes the public key of a user or entity E or a sender and registers public key with certifying authority. It verifies that when sender says, I am Bob, they look at the ID card or some other means or place of the passport, driving license, or voter ID, or whatever you name it. So it is up to certifying authority to verify the identity. Once the certifying authority is sure that it is the voter, it is the Bob who's saying is the public key by giving the different proof of identity, then certifying authority would sign it, meaning certifying authority would encrypt the public key of the sender with the private key of certifying authority. Little confusing, but be clear. The certifying authority encrypts the public key of the user by private key of certifying authority. which is captured in the diagram. Let's say Bob has a public key and Bob wants to get it certified. Bob approaches the certifying authority. Certifying authority verifies the identity of the Bob through whatever means available to them. It could be identity card, it could be passport, it could be income tax card or whatever that is. Once the certifying authority verifies the identity, what certifying authority does, take the public key of Bob and encrypts with its own private key. Now, public key of certifying authority is available to everybody. If you look at the browser, it has more than 100 plus certifying authority. It has public key of all those authorities. And then the encryption of public key of the user by private certifying authority is called digital certificate. So this becomes Bob's digital certificate. Now what Bob does, when it needs to send a document, Bob will take his document, generate a hash value, sign the hash value with the private key, and then Bob sends document, encrypted hash value, and its digital certificate. So what receiver does? Receiver knows that it is digital certificate. It has been signed by VeriSign or whatever. And this public key of this certifying authority are known to everybody through means in the browser with their few limited. So using public key of certifying authority, it applies that public key to the digital certificate of Bob, and that gives you public key of Bob. Now the Alice is sure that is the public key of Bob, and using this public key, now she can apply the public key to the encrypted hash value and then get compared and then see. So what receiver would get? Message M. Encrypted hash value of message M with private key of sender and digital certificate of the sender, which is public key of sender encrypted with private key of the certifying authority. When it comes to receiver, receiver applies public key of the certifying authority on the digital certificate and get the public key of sender. Using this public key of sender, the recipient applies this public key to the hash value encrypted with private key of sender, and because of the nature of public private key, applying public key of sender, it will get the actual hash value. The recipient has the message M as well, compute the hash value and compares the two matches. Recipient is sure that sign is correct. So digital certificate verifies the sender and signed hash value is the digital signature. To understand the difference between digital signature versus digital certificate. Digital certificate contains the signed hash value, signed public key by certifying authority. Digital signature is hash value of the message encrypted with the private key of the sender. So let's recap, and we have different cases. So we look at authentication and verification of the sender. The process would work as follows. Sender gets a certificate from certifying authority. Sender generates the message digest. Sender encrypts message digest with its private key. And then sender sends the message, encrypted message digest, which is encrypted with private key of sender and digital certificate. And receiver work accordingly. Receiver would apply public key of the certifying authority on the digital certificate. So get the public key of sender, apply the public key of sender with encrypted message digest and retrieve the message digest. Receiver would compute message digest of the given message, compares the two messages, it knows message is from sender and verifying it. And that way you can verify the integrity of the message as well as the authenticity of the sender. This is different from confidentiality. We are only looking at the message, the sender authenticity. If we're looking at confidentiality, then message has to be encrypted. We are not encrypting the message here as though we're talking of digital signature. So digital signature, message is not encrypted, is only the hash is encrypted. If sender want to make sure confidentiality as well, then message also has to be encrypted along with this digital signature. So for confidentiality, what sender does, it chooses a nonce. Remember, message encryption is to be done using symmetric key because encrypting a message using public-private key would be very compute intensive. So for confidentiality purposes, message is encrypted with a symmetric key. So how to get symmetric key? Sender chooses some random number which is called symmetric key. Sender encrypts the entire message using this symmetric key. But how does receiver know the symmetric key? Because receiver has to get symmetric key to make sure that it retrieves the message. So what sender does, it encrypts the random key, symmetric key with public key of the receiver. Public key of receiver is known to everybody. Receiver can publicize this digital certificate and using that sender can receive a public key of receiver and encrypt the nonce with public key of the receiver and then sends it. So what sender does, send the encrypted message with the symmetric key and sends this encrypted key signed with public key of the receiver. Now receiver gets it because receiver has the private key. It can decrypt the encrypted nonce and get the actual nonce which is the symmetric key. And using this symmetric key, receiver could decrypt the message as well, and this way it ensures confidentiality. So here to differentiate between confidentiality and of message integrity and authentication. For confidentiality, you take a random number, that becomes a symmetric key, encrypt the message, and encrypt this nonce which is symmetric key with public key of the receiver. For the authenticity part, the sender creates a message digest, signs the message digest with its private key, and sends digital certificate. And that's how things basically work. And receiver could also verify because it has been signed by private key and private key matches with public key, so sender cannot deny that never sent a message. And that way, the confidentiality, integrity, non-repudiation are ensured. However, even the topic is not in the book, but to briefly give an idea, each certificate has a validity. Sometimes sender says, oh, I lost my private key. It's a big compromise. So I want to revoke my digital certificate, get a new certificate. So each certifying authority maintains a list of revoked certificates, indicating this certificate was valid so far, but not valid anymore. So anytime receiver has to verify, it has to verify that digital certificate has not been revoked. So each browser also maintains a list of revoked certificates and update that. And that's why you need to have a browser update regularly because certificate could be revoked anytime and browser not updated, it may not have it. So that is equally important to update a browser so that they keep getting updated with proper revoked list. So this brings to the end of our discussion. We started with basically saying, first, we could encrypt the entire message. That could become a signature, but using a public-private key could be too compute intensive. So we don't encrypt the entire message, but encrypt the message digest. And this happens with the private key, which can decrypt with public key to make sure that receiver is guaranteed that public key is not been spoofed off. Sender also needs to send digital certificate, which ensures that receiver got the right public key of this sender, which can verify. So this brings to the end of our digital signature, go through it, review the book, understand, and then you can refer, understand. So next lecture on Monday, we would basically go into firewalls part. Thank you. Any questions? Please feel free to ask. Otherwise, we are done for today's lecture. No questions. Thank you.